Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well on this marvellous, marvellous Monday. That's it. It's Monday and it's marvellous. And you're looking absolutely marvellous. Now, I didn't really know what I was going to be talking about today because there's a few bits and pieces going on. We could talk about Rachel Moran, couldn't we? And the fact that it seems that they're now trying to turn this into some form of political agenda to say that it's the government's fault because they don't have a proper grasp on immigration, and if they did, then things like this wouldn't happen. Rachel Moran would perhaps still be alive. Now, I'm not going to get into the political side of things, but the guy who'd been sort of pulled up on her murder, he was in the country illegally. It's not an easy fix to stop that. You can do stuff, but it isn't quite as easy as just snapping your fingers and that problem's gonna go away. But again, I'm not getting political because I know that's when stuff starts going downhill. We could talk about Sebastian Rogers because there's stuff happening in the Sebastian Rogers case, like a battle seemingly between the jealous Bullhorn Betty and JLR, as posts have been put up on some platform, on some page on YouTube, and seemingly there's been accusations from Bullhorn Betty that it was JLR who did it. He posted it anonymously to bring the entire case to some sort of standstill. And yeah, we could talk about that, but no, I'm not. I'm not, because it's just complete and utter insanity. I could talk about Summer Wells because it's 3 years now, 3 years since she vanished from her parents' home. But in reality, it doesn't seem that people are that interested anymore. People want drama. They want sensationalized stories. So we're going to go back into the weeds today because we're going to go back to the Idaho 4 case, and we're going to talk about specifically the 8-hour time delay, because this was brought back up again with Howard Blum, because he was talking about the 8-hour time delay and that he would be covering this, he would be talking about this, he would be shedding light on this in his book, because he knows all the answers, doesn't he? He definitely knows all the answers. But what I will say is, this 8-hour time delay has been a complete and utter shower of shite since the beginning. And we have pussyfooted around it and allowed it to sort of not really be challenged. Yes, we've brought it up and we've said things about it, and we've pulled Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk along the coals a bit because it ain't right. Just simply isn't right. But the things what came out during this Howard Blum interview was that, look, the 911 call was apparently a call made by Hunter using Dylan Mortensen's phone. And Howard Blum talks about the contents of that call. I did a video yesterday. If you missed it, go check it out. But he talks about the wailing on this video. He talks about the fact that on this call, he talks about the wailing. It was just wailing, which, you know, I get the distress of it all. I get that a 911 call is not really going to be, especially when you're sort of reporting a murder or a death, anything like that. It's not going to be a happy one, is it? It's not going to be like you're ordering a fucking McDonald's through DoorDash, is it? It's going to have a certain air to it. But what I will say is this: that call to bring other people over, what was the catalyst for that call? What was the catalyst for the call that brought the people to the house instead of law enforcement? Because that's when it all turns a little bit side-eye, when you start looking at people and saying, hold on a second, this situation doesn't completely add up, does it? Because I think to myself, why were these people called over to this house rather than law enforcement in the first place? What was the point of that? What was the point in calling other people over? During that call, did that first call that went out, which I'm guessing, again, was from Dylan Mortensen's phone, which just happens to be the person who sees the masked person in the house, she makes a call, not to law enforcement, but to friends. And one of those friends, specifically, must have been Hunter, the friend of Ethan Chapin. Now, there is some confusion over whether it was Hunter the brother or Hunter the friend. And, you know, one of Ethan's friends was indeed a hunter. I'm not 100% sure. Someone else might be able to correct me down below whether they know the specific person. I know that he had a friend with the surname Hunter, who is actually now in forces. He'd actually gone overseas shortly after this crime and had at one point been challenged online because he himself had a hunting knife. But that's by the by. Point being in all this, a call gets made by Dylan Mortensen, not to law enforcement, but just so happens that a friend of Ethan's then comes over to the house. Panic ensues, or this all ensues, and ends up with a call being made to law enforcement using Dylan Mortensen's phone. So I think to myself, firstly, why are you using Dylan Mortensen's phone to call 911? Why did Dylan Mortensen call anybody else other than law enforcement in the first place? Why? Why did that happen? Why didn't you just call law enforcement and then call other people? Why was the first call seemingly to Ethan Chapin's friend for him to come over? He then comes over, goes to that room, and it seems that all the activity is around this room and around Ethan. It seems that, you know, when we talk about the different possibilities, we've talked recently about the Aryan brothers and how when you step back and look at all that, it does look very plausible. Even Howard Blum, again, he talked about the narcotics on the peripheral and how all of these people in this, well, not all of them, but the majority of these, they had some form of connection that went back to narcotics. But we then have this frat boy situation, which recently I thought to myself, that's a lot of moving parts. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of moving parts. Could they have really done it? But then I think to myself, when you go back again and you look at these stories, when it's fraternity deaths, like hazing deaths, I was touched on one a few days back, there always seems to be a delay of some description in getting help. In the Hazen death we spoke about the other day, they said if these people had have actually called law enforcement, the young lad who lost his life in that case, he would have probably still been alive. But the failings to actually call law enforcement resulted in his death as he died from alcohol poisoning. And then we have a situation here where you have 4 people slain in a house and people not ringing law enforcement again. Not ringing law enforcement and ringing friends to come over. And then you've got a call that's claiming that it was all whaling. Well, not being funny, but they must have already known what's in the house. So if you know what's happened in the house, then why not call? I can't get it. I don't understand it, and I can't make excuses for it. I can't even accept people when they turn around and say, well, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what they went through. Stop victim blaming. Blaming the victims. They've been through enough. Fuck off. All you've got to do is understand that something's gone fucking horribly wrong, pick up the phone and call 911 and say, we need help. If you don't do that, in my opinion, you're fucking hiding something. And that's as simple as that. There's no excuses for it, especially when you have 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds who can pick up the phone and call 911. So my question is, why didn't they call 911? Because to me, it looks like you're hiding something. And with the fact that the person who was called just happened to have a direct connection to Ethan Chapin, and it was Ethan Chapin's friend who came over, and the activity we've heard about is around that room, and what happened in that room, to me, it again brings back into contention, if you like, the frat theory, the fight theory. And I think that when you do step back and you listen to the way that Steve Gonsalves had Jack helping him and doing almost like a sleuth thing together and going over it, and even Steve Gonsalves claiming that people were cleared too quickly, this fight was brought up. This fight was brought up. 100%. 100%. This fight was brought up, and that was potentially something that even Steve Gonsalves and others had thought was a catalyst for this situation. And that's why 911 call was not made until later, and other people were called in. That's what happened here, in my opinion, of course. People, call 911, get help to people. And if you see someone in the house that shouldn't be there, call 911, call help. You may save some lives. Catch you all in the next one.